Okay, so this is our small group discussion forum. So yeah. So the first question is, what is your personal reaction to the reading in TED Talk? What informed you, surprised you, or simply made you think further about the stigma of mental health disorders? I personally,
Sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Um, I was gonna say I personally thought they were pretty interesting. Um, like for instance, for the TED Talk, how she was talking about her college experience and how she kind of didn't know what was going on and how these, voices in her head were telling her all these things. And then how even when she went to get help, that she still felt as if she's kind of being persecuted against because she doesn't feel like people really understood what was going on in her head and didn't really ask her how she was doing or anything of that sort. And I got also the same vibe from the reading as well, because she was like, no one understood what I was doing and how I was feeling. Because I believe she also suffered from schizophrenia, I believe, and everything. Um, so, I mean, honestly, that could be a common theme with the disorder, just because it is something that's hard to understand because you don't know what these voices in their heads are telling them to do, or these impulses or anything of that sort. So,
Yeah, I was really interested in the TED Talk specifically. I'm taking abnormal psych right now. I don't know if you guys have taken it or if you have to take it, but we have to talk about schizophrenia specifically for a while. So it was cool to relate the information I learned in the class to her story.
Yeah, I also found it interesting how both of them kind of talked about how like the people around them kind of didn't really know like how to react to them. And I found that really interesting because I was like, I don't know how I would react. I think like if someone in my life became diagnosed with schizophrenia, so I was like, it's like it's hard being in that situation, and then it's also hard like how do you learn how to I don't know, relate to someone who's dealing with things like you could never possibly understand.
Like I know with the TED Talk, she was talking about how she was telling like one of her friends about it, and she like backed off a bit and was a bit, I guess, standoffish with her for a while because no one really not a lot of people understand what exactly entails it to have schizophrenia, and a lot of people just have this notion that they are insane and they just are dangerous and just back off.
Yeah, like the default for a lot of people might be to just like back off and like give them space, but it's like like both the reading and the TED Talk talked about how like lonely they felt, and so it's like yeah, like it's you kind of have to like work to kind of like unlearn the like stigma towards these like more severe mental illnesses to kind of like be there for people, because it's really lonely, like on top of having this like debilitating kind of experience.
If I remember correctly, I think in the TED Talk, she described the voices as like a defense mechanism against like trauma. And I mean, at that point, it's like when people, since a lot of people are just kind of backing off, it's like you're taking away even more support from them when they really need as much help as they can get to be, or a support system rather.
yeah, honestly, and in the reading, she talks about like in the beginning how whenever she got put on like medication and after she was hospitalized and went back home, how she had the same exact routine like every single day where she would get out of bed, go in a chair, and then smoke until she goes to get lunch, and then she goes back and she takes a nap, and then she goes back to the chair and smokes again, and then she goes to get dinner, and she goes back to the chair until she goes to bed. And so, and I that can definitely be, lonely, especially if people don't really understand what's going on in their heads. And I mean, I've had the opportunity to be able to meet people with schizophrenia and work with people with schizophrenia due to my job I have at the hospital right now. So it's pretty interesting to see it in, like, I don't know, I guess to see it in real life and everything, and really, I don't know, like, these people are just so, they can be so normal and everything. Like, you wouldn't see anything.
Is it like how she described? Because you said that you saw it.
I mean, whenever I've seen them, they're like pretty normal. Like, they'll genuinely like talk to me about like
Mhm.
anything going on in their lives. Like, sometimes like you'll notice like things happening, like you'll notice them like either like looking off to the side or like start talking about something and everything, like as if there's another person there, or there's something that's bothering them. But I don't know.
Okay, the second question is to identify common themes between the reading and the TED Talk, which we've kind of already been doing. But I would say it's also like similar how like just like both of their like pre-diagnosis experiences, like it was just both like all of a sudden out of nowhere, which was just kind of very like shocking to me. Like I know that's kind of like how it happens, but at the same time, like reading about like their own personal narratives, I'm just like, wow, like it really is just kind of like out of the blue.
Yeah, and they were both in their adolescence age, which was kind of like relatable, but not relatable, but because we're
Yeah.
kind of in that age group, so.
Yeah, no, it's like you're already struggling just because you're like a teenager and
Mhm.
being that age sucks. And then on top of it, it's like, you have this whole new thing to deal with.
Yeah, it's and I guess another similar thing is they were talking about like their hospitalizations and how they were both hospitalized to get through schizophrenia and everything. And like sometimes that is the case. Like sometimes people will be like hospitalized, but sometimes it's also as simple as just getting on medication. But I know how like hospitalization, like I don't know, there's a stigma towards that and everything, I think, especially from working in the field. It's like people believe it's like you're going to like balloony bin and everything. That's where only like the craziest of crazy people go. But in reality, that's not the case and everything. Like anyone can go there. Like if you're severely like struggling with like your mental health disorder or anything of that sort, just mentally in general, then it's one of the best things to do, because it's a great way to getting like regulated on medication and being able to talk to someone constantly, or yeah.
Yeah, and then going back to like how they're all kind of like both in this like adolescent period, that definitely probably makes the stigma like worse, because it's like you're trying to like form connections that you kind of will probably have for like a long part of your life. And so it's just kind of like going through like the last bit of your development and your adolescence, not really having that kind of like social support, because there's just so much like stigma. And especially if you're like in and out of like the hospital and stuff, it's hard to like like kind of like dismantle your own stigmas and then also deal with like other people's stigma towards you as well, which like cannot be good for your development at that age.
Yeah, one thing that I'm seeing while re-looking through the reading is just a lot of theme about like accepting, or it's like I'm trying to figure out the way the best phrase is, but like in the TED Talk, I know she was talking about like accepting that, or not accepting, but like being more understanding that what she's experiencing doesn't make her any less human. And it's the same thing with like within the reading, where that's like a whole thing around mental illness, where people are just like, these people are crazy, they just be kind of like pushed away. While that does just makes things incredibly worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, socials. Sorry about all my emails, but but honestly, yeah, I think that definitely makes it worse, just because social support is it's so needed, like during this time period, especially. You want to be like, surrounded by your family and friends that are there to be like, it's okay to feel this way and everything. Like, and if you need to talk, I'm like here for you and everything. I may not understand like what you're going through, but you can explain it to me or anything of that sort. Just simple, like just like sitting there and everything with someone, or just hearing them out, even if it's just like rambling or anything of that sort. So
Yeah, I feel like there's the reading and the TED Talk were like similar. We've gone through most of the common themes.
I really liked how the reading was like a letter to herself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the format was like very like intimate, kind of like they're like writing a diary. All right, and the last question, right? I mean, yeah, I don't know if this should take up the rest of the time. So the information you required from this reading and TED Talk, how will it inform your future practice or like a more informed community member? Can you relate it to other shifts and perspectives you have regarding other identity topics in the course? Yes, I definitely think like it definitely kind of like reaffirmed that like I have like more to learn about all these different identity groups, because it's just like everyone has such a unique experience. And then like I also like how she said that hold on, I wrote it down, don't remember what it was. Oh, it was not what's wrong with you, but rather what's happened to you. I like how she said that, because it was like everyone's experiences were like really, really different. So it's like kind of makes you want to think like, as like a future helping professional, it's like, don't think about like what's wrong with them. It's just kind of like a different, like, like I don't like when people are like, oh, that's not normal. It's like, well, it's just different than normal, but it's not like wrong, And so it's like, it just kind of really makes you really like emphasizes that everyone's like kind of different, and everyone has different experiences.
yeah. I know for me personally, in my future profession, I hope to work with people that are dealing with trauma, and seeing, and like it's just really insightful to get like firsthand accounts of things such as like schizophrenia, as like them talking about how they've had something in their past, like the TED Talk briefly mentioned, talking about like childhood trauma and how the voices were just kind of response to that as like a defense mechanism, and instead of just viewing it as like something that may be detrimental. I think she like at the end talked about how she like embraced the voices as like kind of like a way to help her. And it's just really interesting just to see how different how the brain in different ways can react to trauma. It's very good to learn for the future.
Yeah, I think for me personally, like this is the main group of people that I want to work with. Because I personally want to work in a hospital, working with the hospital's crisis team. So that's working with people coming in to the hospital needing immediate assistance. So I definitely think it's good to keep in mind, that these people are just like us and that they are just going through a tough time and going through something traumatic even and everything that can traumatize them. And can you relate? I mean, the only thing like that I can think of like relating wise is like how we need to like shift our perspective. This is something I talked about, I think, earlier on in the year and everything in one of our papers, and it is how we need to stop the stigmatism towards mental health and also stop it towards hospitalizations and everything, because it's not something that's bad and everything. It's something that people need and everything. And it's something that actually helps people whenever they go. So, yeah. Aniston, do you have anything?
Just like relating to Chris, I also have an interest in mental health counseling or trauma counseling, so that was just nice to read and like learn more. And are you guys interested in mental health counseling, or like do you have different directions?
Yeah, I want to go to grad school for clinical mental health counseling.
I'm going to grad school to get my MSW, and I want to eventually get my LCSW and stuff, but more
Oh, wow.
specifically focus on mental health. Mm. So do you guys have any stigmas towards mental health? Because I know before I got into like psychology and even like now and everything, I still, have stigmas towards, certain mental health disorders and everything. Like even though seeing schizophrenia and everything in real person, like I feel like I probably still have stigmas towards it and everything. Cause I feel like, I don't know, you see it more as like the more, what do I want to say? Not high end, more, I guess kind of like more demonizing and everything mental health disorder, just because you're hearing voices, you're seeing different things that's not really there. And it's like, I don't know how to like kind of like wrap my head around it and like how it happens and like how, I don't know, how people can like hear and see things that aren't there and everything, and just how their mind really does that, I guess. So
Yeah, like this is a different, a more kind of like extreme like mental illness than ones were more like maybe like we can more relate to depression, I guess. And so it's kind of like a kind of a natural human response to kind of be uncertain or like uncomfortable about something that's just like so you can't relate to at all, like it's very much like not something I could ever like relate to until it happens to me, or not until, but if it ever happens to me. And so it's like it's a lot more uncomfortable kind of to wrap your head around and stuff.
I think also like depiction of how it is in like movies is like this as somebody who is just insane and then just incredibly unstable and just like Alex said, demonizing in a way. And I think that's what ingrains like a lot of people's stigma around schizophrenia is just through how it's portrayed in the media.
Yeah, I've never seen it like in real life, but there's an episode of Grey's Anatomy, you guys might know it, but and he thinks all the hospital workers are like out to get him and stuff like that. So that's what I thought of when I was listening and reading.
I mean, all in all, I mean, some people, they definitely do think that way and everything. At least from one of the patients that I've experienced and everything, she was convinced that everyone in that hospital was out to get her, making her like plotting her death and everything. So it's definitely a real thing with schizophrenia, like you being that paranoid, thinking that the people who want to help you are the people that want to harm you. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop it.